Thank you for volunteering to support NSLI-Y with the application evaluation process. In this training, we will be providing key information about the Virtual NSLI-Y Fall 2024 and Winter 2025 programs. This video is intended to be viewed as a supplement to the Overseas NSLI-Y Evaluator training video. We recommend revisiting that training as a refresher before proceeding with this video. Please be sure to listen to this entire recording, even if you have evaluated for us before, as some information for this application cycle has changed. Over the next few minutes, we'll review the Virtual NSLI-Y program, Department of State priorities for applicant selection, a review of the NSLI-Y adjustment factors as they relate to Virtual NSLI-Y, the role of language motivation on acceptance to the program, other components for overall assessment, and a review of the online evaluation portal. Virtual NSLI-Y was introduced in 2019 and has the same goals as the overseas programs, but offers language learning and cultural exchange in a live online format. It also differs from overseas programs in that classes are beginner only, and selection preference is given to students who have not otherwise had an opportunity to formally study a critical language or extensively experience cultures other than their home culture. We'll talk more about what this means for selection later in this video. While the overseas programs have a separate application process, about half of Virtual NSLI-Y participants end up applying to an overseas program as well. Students can apply to both the virtual and overseas NSLI-Y programs as long as they complete their Virtual NSLI-Y program first. All Virtual NSLI-Y classes are beginner level. No prior language learning experience is required. When applying to participate in Virtual NSLI-Y, students select a first preference language and have the option to select a second preference language. The languages offered are Arabic, Mandarin Chinese, Hindi, Korean, Russian, and Turkish. Selected finalists are placed in classes according to student preferences and availability. Virtual NSLI-Y is structured into a 10-week beginner-level foreign language and cultural experience that takes place during the typical school year. Students attend 90-minute sessions twice a week, taught by experienced language teachers. There may also be up to 3 hours of assignments or homework per week. Cultural and language learning opportunities can include activities like cooking demonstrations, calligraphy practice, dance and song lessons, and virtual tours. The program also introduces participants to featured guests. These guests typically consist of experts on traditional arts and cuisine, NSLI-Y study abroad alumni, and professionals who use language and cultural skills in their careers. The program also offers optional community building activities outside of language classes. These student group meetings can include game nights, strategies for language learning success, information about studying abroad, and supplemental guest speakers. To be eligible for Virtual NSLI-Y, students must be a U.S. citizen, be a U.S.-based student enrolled in high school at the time of participation, be 15 to 18 years old, and be a novice in the language selected on the application. This means that students have had no formal instruction from school, camp, tutoring, or online programs, and are not enrolled in classes for their preferred Virtual NSLI-Y language during the program. In addition, students cannot be a current or past participant of any NSLI-Y or U.S. Department of State exchange program, and they must meet all requirements regarding family member employment. Very limited self-study of the language is acceptable, but students must still be beginners. They are instructed in the application to self-assess their level using ACTFL materials. Students must be able to access necessary supplies to participate, that is, reliable internet, headphones, a quiet space to participate from, and a tablet or computer. American councils will be able to provide financial support to students for these supplies if they meet financial need requirements. Any applicant who selects false to an eligibility question will be contacted independently to provide clarification on their answer. Some may have been marked in error by the student. In any case, we ask evaluators to note a yellow flag in this situation to mark the issue for further review during final selection. The Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs has indicated priorities for participation in Virtual NSLI-Y. As we discussed, this program is really intended to be an introduction to a critical language and culture. Final selection and placement will be a balance of merit review and the priorities noted on this slide. Evaluators will assign additional points to applicants based on priorities just before the overall assessment section. This is different from the overseas NSLI-Y programs. Here are some more notes on the program's priorities. With regard to limited experience abroad, we're particularly focused on residency and study abroad or exchange in the last 5 years. Limited understanding of target language host cultures is also important, as again, ECA is intending this program to be an introductory experience for students who might not otherwise have had an opportunity to be exposed to these languages or cultures. For example, some students may have never studied the language, but may have traveled to a country where the language is spoken multiple times or for an extended period. This should be noted as part of your evaluation process. We are especially seeking participants who will be new to less commonly taught languages deemed critical to U.S. national security, including all of the NSLI-Y languages and/or students who are new to language study completely. We're also aiming to ensure that our student body represents the diversity of the U.S., including students who typically are underrepresented in exchange. That might include students of color, students with high financial need, and different communities across the U.S. Notes that you take in the Language Study and Travel section, as well as the Knowledge of Languages sections, will be particularly useful to refer to when you're determining these priority ratings. Now for a quick review of the components of online evaluation for Virtual NSLI-Y. We recommend that you pause the video here to ensure all of the information on this slide is familiar to you. The Virtual NSLI-Y evaluation process is similar to the NSLI-Y summer and academic year program evaluation process with some differences. One major difference is the lack of a semi-finalist and interview stage for Virtual NSLI-Y. This difference is one more reason why your careful evaluation of the student's written application is critical to the selection process. Another difference is that students are able to provide unofficial transcripts. These can take the form of screenshots of an online grade portal or scans of physical report cards. They must still provide full records for their high school grades and, in the case of rising ninth graders, a list of the classes they are taking in their first term of high school, along with their middle school grades. Students submit these academic records themselves. If they have not redacted personal information, please disregard this as part of your evaluation. The rating of ECA priorities is also unique to Virtual NSLI-Y. When making your overall assessment, keep the application evaluating guidelines on hand and refer to your notes from the Language Study and Travel section. This will help us to ensure that Virtual NSLI-Y prioritizes candidates who may have had fewer opportunities to learn about other languages and cultures. Now we'll discuss the adjustment factors. For Virtual NSLI-Y applications, we honed in on just 6 possible adjustment factors, considering what would be most relevant to an all-online program and what would be possible to see in the somewhat brief application. I'll now briefly summarize what each factor communicates in a Virtual NSLI-Y application, but please make sure to consult your factors reference sheet as well while evaluating. For communicativeness, the student must be willing to speak in class and ask for help from their teacher. For curiosity, the student should demonstrate a genuine interest in language and culture. For flexibility and adaptability, the student should be able to deal with challenges that may arise in the virtual program, willing to try new things in a new language. For open-mindedness, we look for students who should be open to new ideas and diverse classmates from across the U.S. For positive regard for others, we look for students who express warmth and empathy for others. For sense of self, we are looking for maturity and self-awareness. In particular, the ability for students to engage in self-directed learning is critical for this program. No other NSLI-Y factors will be used. You will read 2 written responses, an introduction to their language teachers and an essay, and you will be asked to identify factors in both. Score based on the framework you are familiar with, based on the number of factors you see and how well developed they are. Now let's discuss the confidential recommendation. Recommenders could be a recent teacher or any adult not related to the student who can speak to their academic preparedness for this program. If a student does not have a recommendation, they should still be evaluated. Based on the confidential recommender's written response, assessment of traits, and final recommendation selection, please rate the recommendation according to the following scale: 0, missing, or does not recommend the student; 1, average support with concern or hesitation; 2, solid or above average support; or 3, very strong or outstanding support. Here is an example of a recommendation that would be rated a 3. You can skim through some of the bolded text to see how the student's recommender, a Spanish teacher and Spanish club sponsor in this case, described the student's character, preparedness, ability to contribute to a diverse classroom, interest in language and cultural learning, and communication style. While this recommender did not suggest that the student had any skills to work on, it is important to note that suggesting that a student could work on a skill further should not necessarily negatively impact your rating. Like the overseas programs, it's important for Virtual NSLI-Y students to be motivated to study the language. We have a slightly different motivation levels rubric for Virtual NSLI-Y because this is a beginner program. Considering the entire application, but mainly the letter of introduction and essay response, we ask you to determine an overall score for motivation. Rating 0 means that the student expresses minimal or no interest in studying their Virtual NSLI-Y language and expresses no clear motivation or reasons for participating in the program. Rating 1 means that the student seems somewhat interested in participating, but does not make a clear case for why Virtual NSLI-Y will be a benefit to them. They might mention language and cultural learning, but vaguely. Rating 2 means that the student expresses specific or general goals for participating in Virtual NSLI-Y, expresses what they might gain from participating in the program, expresses interest and enthusiasm about learning a Virtual NSLI-Y language and about its related culture, and mentions possible future plans like career, academic, or within their home community, etc., that include use of the Virtual NSLI-Y language or languages. Here are some brief examples on language motivation. For the purposes of the training, we only included some portions of the application. Please take a moment to pause this video and read the quote under rating 0. In the first example, the student's motivation was rated as 0 as they are primarily interested in building their resume and participating to please their parents. The student does not demonstrate moderate or strong intrinsic language or cultural learning motivation. Now please take a moment to pause this video and read the quote under rating 1. In this second example, the student expresses moderate to strong general language and cultural curiosity and mentions pursuing other languages. This would not be rated as strong as it is missing specific mention of the Virtual NSLI-Y language they are applying for. Please take a moment to pause this video and read the quote under rating 2. This student's motivation is rated as strong because they discuss how it will enhance their study of linguistics generally, as well as how they will use the language in the future in their career as a surgeon. This example would be even stronger if the student gave more specific examples of the ways they will benefit from the study of the specific language they're applying for, and why they cannot pursue that study outside of this program. Now for some practice in evaluation of motivation. Please pause the video at each practice example to determine your rating. Then continue the video to reveal the answer. Read this example and determine the appropriate motivation score. Based upon this example, we would rate this student's motivation a 1. This student is obviously enthusiastic about studying Korean and references the fact that the chance to study this specific language is the main reason they are applying. This cannot be rated as strong because the student does not discuss future use of the language and spends equal amounts of time in their essay describing why they don't want to study Spanish. Read this second example and determine the appropriate motivation score. Based upon this example, we would rate the student's motivation a 2. This student discusses why they want to learn a new language in general and also specifies their long-term interest in pursuing Korean language and cultural learning, as well as travel to Korea to put that learning to use. Now let's discuss the participation priorities section, where we ask you to consider the entire application to determine if the student meets ECA's priorities for participation. With special attention paid to the language study and knowledge of languages sections, please carefully assign points based on the following priorities. Has the student participated in a short or long-term exchange or study abroad program? If no, award 3 points. If yes, award 0 points. Has the student traveled extensively or lived abroad for more than 6 months in the last 5 years? If no, award 3 points. If yes, award 0 points. Has the student received formal instruction or tutoring in Arabic, Mandarin Chinese, Hindi, Indonesian, Korean, Persian, Russian, or Turkish? If no, award 2 points. If yes, award 0 points. Consider this example. Feel free to pause the video to review this student's information. For this student, you should award 0 points for priority questions 1 through 3. The student appears to have participated in a language exchange program, has experienced somewhat extensive and diverse international travel, and has formally studied foreign languages, including a NSLI-Y critical language. If some or all of these trips were prior to more than 5 years ago, it might change your priority score. However, we would encourage you to add notes in your overall assessment if the travel or residency abroad was extensive, or if it was to a country or countries that speak the language that the student applied for. Let's look at one more example. Please pause the video to review this student's information. This student has not taken part in an exchange of any type, has traveled minimally, and has never studied any languages. They should be awarded full points each for priority questions 1, 2, and 3. In total, they will receive 8 out of 8 priority points. Near the end of the online evaluation, please mark any flags. Note that all flags, with exception of eligibility questions or other concerns, should impact either ECA priority points, negative factors, or your overall appraisal. If you're sure the student does not meet the beginner level requirement for the language they are applying for, you should mark a yellow flag and include a comment on this in your overall appraisal comments. We have attempted to filter out students that don't meet eligibility requirements, but we need your help in the review as key information may be revealed in the essays or recommendation. Again, students who marked false to an eligibility statement, but who still remain in the evaluation queue, are known to us and have been contacted for clarification. You can make a note of the false eligibility answer and any supporting evidence of that answer in the eligibility section and/or in the overall appraisal summary. As a reminder, you all have been trained on avoiding common biases. Notify us if you have any potential conflicts of interest. Stay focused on the evaluation guidelines and be objective. Avoid assumptions and remain focused on what the student actually presents in their written application. Red flags include disturbing comments regarding behavior and violent comments. Yellow flags include immaturity, extreme shyness, arrogance, aggressiveness, bullying or mistreating others, no motivation for language or culture study, or any issue or comment that causes concern about the student's eligibility or preparedness. One more note on the topic of other reasons to mark a yellow flag. The program's terms and conditions were updated this year to specifically prohibit the use of artificial intelligence tools or software to complete program assignments. Similarly, program essays should be the applicant's own work. This slide lists some indicators that an essay might have been written using AI assistance. If you suspect that an essay is not entirely the applicant's own work, please mark an other yellow flag, which covers any issue or comment that causes concern about the student's eligibility or preparedness. It is appropriate for vague or irrelevant essay information to impact your score, but please do not give an applicant a lower score solely based on suspicion of AI assistance. Your observations will be considered as part of final application review. Now we'll discuss the overall appraisal. Staff rely on your overall appraisal in finalizing selection decisions. After you have read the entire application, review all the sections, taking into account your own reactions and any yellow or red flags. Your overall appraisal comments should include clear, succinct, objective statements justifying your overall appraisal score based on the 0 to 5 scale noted on the slide. It should also have a few sentences to justify your overall appraisal score. Your summary of the candidate's strengths and weaknesses is appreciated, and your impression of the candidate's academic motivation for Virtual NSLI-Y is crucial. Please consider the entire application package and articulate if you feel the sum is greater than the parts. Please also note in your evaluation if you consider a student's second language preference, whether specific or any, worthy of consideration. Then, assign 0 to 5 points to the candidate based on your overall estimation. Virtual NSLI-Y evaluations will be conducted online using the AIS Forms platform. If you have questions about your login credentials, please reach out to Reading Room staff for assistance. You have been added to the evaluation queue for this application already. Each application will be read by one evaluator, and each evaluator may hold up to 4 unfinished evaluations at a time. Evaluators must submit one or more of those evaluations before the system will allow you to request another. Save your work as you move from section to section of each evaluation, and reach out to reading room staff if you experience any technical issues. Finally, we would like to share important dates and information. The Fall 2024 evaluation form will open around June 6th. We intend to complete evaluation of all applications no later than Sunday, July 14th. Evaluations will be made available based on a predetermined language priority order, which will be communicated to you by our reading room staff. This order is strategically designed and will help staff during final selection. Thank you so much for reviewing this training and for your support of this process. Questions about the evaluation process may be referred to me, Angela McDougall, at Virtual NSLI-Y at americancouncils.org. Any questions related to your online account or training expectations can be addressed to our reading room staff at volunteer@americancouncils.org. Thanks again for your role in making critical language learning accessible to U.S. high school students.